On the morning of 1st September 1942, 22-year-old Hauptmann Hans-Joachim Marseille, commander of the 3rd Squadron of Fighter Wing 27, climbed into the cockpit of his freshly delivered Messerschmitt Bf 109 F4 Trop Yellow 14 at Quotaifia Airfield, 30 kilometers south of El Alamein. The aircraft carried the familiar black and white spinner and the large yellow number 14 that had become a symbol across the North African front. Marseille had already completed approximately 382 combat sorties and carried 101 confirmed aerial victories, almost all achieved in the desert against British, South African and Australian fighter pilots. That day, he would add 7 more confirmed victories, raising his total to 108. Exactly 29 days later, on 30th September 1942, he would be gone, lost not to enemy fire, but to a mechanical failure in a brand new aircraft. In the space of 1 month, Fighter Wing 27 would lose the pilot who had defined its reputation in the Mediterranean theater. Marseille's journey to the desert began far from the sand and sun of North Africa. Born on 13th of December 1919 in Berlin-Charlottenburg, he grew up in a middle-class family and showed little early interest in military life. His father, a police officer who had served in the First World War, and his mother provided a stable home until their divorce, after which Marseille took his mother's maiden name. He joined the Luftwaffe in November 1938 at the age of 18. Drawn by a passion for flying that had emerged during glider training, he completed fighter pilot training at the Fighter Pilot School at Wien-Schwechat and earned his wings in November 1939, just as the war in the West was reaching its peak. His first combat posting came in the summer of 1940 with the 52nd Fighter Wing on the Channel Front. There he quickly gained a reputation as a gifted but undisciplined pilot. His first squadron commander, Major Adolf Galland, noted in an evaluation, "Outstanding natural ability but needs to learn teamwork." During the Battle of Britain, Marseille claimed 7 victories yet was forced down 4 times himself, earning a transfer that many saw as disciplinary. He spent the winter of 1942-41 in training roles, honing his skills but struggling with authority. His superiors described him as talented yet unreliable, a pilot who flew by instinct rather than formation discipline. In April 1941, Hauptmann Eduard Neumann took command of the 27th Fighter Wing's first group and received orders to deploy to North Africa. Marseille arrived at Ain el Ghazala airfield on 23 April 1941 with exactly 7 victories. Neumann, a veteran of the Spanish Civil War, recognized immediately that the young pilot possessed exceptional eyesight and reflexes. Marseille's first combat sortie over Tobruk on 23 April ended with his first desert victory, a Hurricane of No. 274 Squadron RAF. Within weeks he had developed a distinctive fighting style. He flew alone or with only his wingman, climbed far higher than the rest of the formation, and then dived at extreme speed onto enemy aircraft, firing short, accurate bursts from very close range. Gun camera footage later showed he often needed only 10 to 15 cannon rounds per victory. The North African sky suited him perfectly. The vast open spaces allowed his independent approach to shine, and the constant escort missions over Tobruk and Ghazala gave him endless opportunities. By the end of June 1941, his score stood at 19, and on 22nd of June, he received the Knight's Cross. In August and September, he added rapidly to his total. On 26th of August, he claimed 4 Hurricanes in a single sortie, and on 9th of September, he shot down 5 aircraft in one day for the first time. Neumann wrote in the group war diary, "Marseille's eyesight is phenomenal. He can spot enemy aircraft at distances where others see nothing." The turning point came in September 1941. On 24th September, he claimed 6 victories in 2 sorties, including 4 in 4 minutes against Hurricanes of No. 33 Squadron. The RAF squadron leader Derek Ward, was among the pilots lost in that engagement. Marseille's score now stood at 50, and on 9 September, he was awarded the Oak Leaves. By December 1941, he had 75 victories, and received the swords on 18th December, becoming the youngest recipient at 22 years and 3 days. The Desert War intensified in early 1942. The Africa Corps launched its spring offensive, and the 27th Fighter Wing flew constant escort and sweep missions. Marseille's score climbed quickly. On 8 May 1942, he claimed 6 victories in one day. On 10 June, he claimed another 6, including 4 in 3 minutes against Spitfires of No. 145 Squadron. On 17 June, he claimed 6 more, bringing his total to 101. On 3 September 1942, he received the Diamonds, becoming only the 4th recipient in the entire German armed forces and the youngest ever. British pilots had begun to call him the Star of Africa. Captured RAF aircrew spoke of him with respect. Squadron leader Ian Gleed of No. 244 Wing, shot down on 30 May 1942, later wrote, "He came out of the sun like lightning and was gone before we could react." Marseille's method was unique. He rarely flew in tight formation, preferring to operate independently at 8,000 to 9,000 meters. He could spot enemy aircraft at distances that appeared impossible to others. He then dived at speeds exceeding 800 kilometers per hour, closing to 50 or 100 meters before opening fire. He seldom used the standard reflector sight, relying instead on instinct. His favorite attack came from below and behind, targeting engine or cockpit with 3 to 5 cannon shells. RAF pilots came to recognize the Marseille attack and began breaking formation the moment a lone Messerschmitt appeared high above. By August 1942, his score stood at 101 victories, 94 of them in North Africa, almost all against single-engine fighters. On 1 September 1942, he claimed 7 more confirmed victories in 2 morning sorties, raising his total to 108. That same day, he was promoted to Hauptmann and formally appointed commander of the 3rd Squadron. If you're enjoying these detailed stories of pilots who shaped the skies of World War II, consider subscribing to Forbidden War Tales and giving this video a like. We release new documentaries every week, and your support helps us bring more forgotten histories to light. 11 days after his 7 victory morning, on 11 September 1942, Hans-Joachim Marseille took off at 07:25 from Quartier on a routine fighter sweep south of El Alamein. At 07:48, his squadron made contact with 16 Spitfire VC fighters from 145 and 601 squadrons escorting Boston bombers. Marseille climbed alone to 8,000 meters and then began his dive. In the next 24 minutes, he claimed 17 victories in a continuous series of attacks that broke the British formation completely. RAF records confirmed the loss of 17 Spitfires that morning, 16 from 145 Squadron and 1 from 601. The official combat report described it as the most severe single loss suffered by any squadron in the desert campaign. Marseille's gun camera film shows the sequence: short, precise bursts from very close range, aircraft falling away trailing smoke. He expended only 360 cannon rounds and 200 machine gun rounds for the entire mission. That afternoon he flew again and claimed 1 additional victory, bringing the day's total to 18. The Luftwaffe High Command announced the achievement the following day, and on 3 September 1942, Marseille received the Diamonds, the highest decoration of the German armed forces. By 15 September, his score stood at 158 confirmed victories, 151 of them in North Africa. In September alone, he claimed 54 victories, an average of 8 per flying day. His aircraft, the Bf-109 F4 Trop, Yellow 14, had become the most recognizable fighter on the front. Ground crews painted 158 white victory bars on the tail. The black and white spinner and yellow number 14 were known to every pilot in the Desert Air Force. On 26 September 1942, the 3rd Squadron began converting to the new Bf-109 G2 Trop, the Gustav version with the more powerful DB-605 engine. Marseille flew his first familiarization sortie in the new type on 28 September and immediately disliked it. The Gustav was heavier, less agile at low level, and the redesigned cockpit canopy reduced visibility. He told Neumann, "It feels like flying a truck compared to my old Friedrich." 2 days later, everything ended. On the morning of 30 September 1942, the weather was clear. At 10:38, Bf-109 G2 Trop of the 3rd Squadron took off from Quartier on a routine escort mission for Ju-87 Stukas, attacking British positions south of Imayid. Marseille flew in aircraft Verk Nuneur, 14256, still carrying the yellow 14 markings. The mission was uneventful. The Stukas completed their attack, and the formation turned for home at 11:05, climbing to 4,500 meters. At 11:25, over German-held territory near Sidi Abd el-Rahman, Marseille's calm voice came over the radio. "My engine is losing power. There is smoke in the cockpit." The DB605 engine had begun leaking oil from a cracked cylinder head. Within minutes, the cockpit filled with thick smoke. The formation tightened around him. Lieutenant Gerhard Homuth, leading the Schwarm, ordered the others to stay close and guide him back. Marseille turned southeast toward friendly lines and began a shallow descent. At 11:32, he radioed again. "I can't see anything. The cockpit is full of smoke. I'm going to bail out." Homuth replied, "Jochen, you're over our territory. Try to glide a little longer." Marseille leveled the aircraft, reduced speed, and jettisoned the canopy. The smoke cleared slightly. For 4 minutes, the formation circled protectively. At 11:36, at approximately 600 meters altitude, the engine seized completely. Marseille rolled inverted, unbuckled, and dropped clear. The deeper fuselage and larger tail of the Bf-109 G2 caught him as he fell. He struck the vertical stabilizer with his left leg. The impact broke his thigh and rendered him unconscious. He never pulled the ripcord. 30 seconds later, he reached the ground 50 meters from the crashed aircraft. The 7 other pilots landed immediately. Oberfeldwebel Karl-Heinz Bendert was first on the scene. The medical officer, Dr. Hermann Bickel, arrived within the hour and recorded massive internal injuries as the cause of death. The parachute was undamaged. The aircraft itself was relatively intact. The engine failure was later traced to a manufacturing defect in a batch of DB605 engines delivered in September 1942. All similar aircraft were grounded for 3 weeks. News reached squadron headquarters at 12:15. Eduard Neumann sat in silence for a long time. Johannes Steinhoff later wrote, "The entire wing felt as though we had lost a brother." A funeral with full military honors was held on 2 October 1942 at the German cemetery in Derna. Over 400 officers and men attended. General Feldmarschall Albert Kesselring flew in from Rome. Neumann delivered the eulogy. "He was the finest pilot and the best comrade we ever had." The RAF learned of the loss 2 days later through radio intercept. Air Vice Marshal Harry Broadhurst sent a signal to all squadrons. "The enemy has lost their outstanding fighter pilot in this theater." In the weeks that followed, the absence was unmistakable. Between 1st October and 31st December 1942, the entire 27th Fighter Wing claimed only 96 victories in North Africa. In the 3 months before Marseille's loss, he alone had claimed 84. His logbook recorded 388 combat sorties and 158 confirmed victories, 151 of them in Africa. The last entry, written on 30th of September before takeoff, simply read, "Weather good, mission normal." The desert sky never looked the same again. On 30th of September 1942, at approximately 11:39 Central European Time, the most successful fighter pilot the Luftwaffe ever produced reached the Egyptian desert at over 200 kilometers per hour. There was no enemy aircraft within 100 kilometers, no flak, no bullet hole in the cockpit, just a cracked engine part, a plume of smoke, and a 22-year-old who had trusted the wrong moment to leave his parachute unopened. In the space of 4 seconds, the Afrika Korps lost the one man who had kept air superiority over the battlefield for 18 straight months. The score sheet stopped at 158 confirmed victories, 151 of them in Africa, 151 against single-engine fighters, 17 in a single day, 18 on another. And then nothing. The news reached Berlin that afternoon. Hitler was briefed at the Wolfschanze at 16:00. According to the minutes of the Führer conference, he listened in silence, then said only, "A great loss. Promote him posthumously and give him a state funeral." Goebbels ordered 3 days of official mourning in the Luftwaffe and a special broadcast on Deutscher Rundfunk. The Wilkische Beobachter headline the next day read simply, "Unbesiegt," undefeated. In Rome, Kesselring cancelled all leave for JG-27 and flew personally to Derna for the funeral on 2nd October. 400 officers and men stood in the heat as Marseille's coffin, draped in the swastika flag, was lowered beneath a propeller carved from local stone. Edward Neumann spoke the eulogy. "He was not only the best pilot we ever had, he was the best comrade. He gave everything and asked nothing in return." The grave still stands today in the German military cemetery at Tobruk, Plot 1, Row 4, Grave 1, under the same propeller monument. The RAF reaction was immediate and respectful. On 2nd October, Air Vice Marshal Harry Broadhurst sent a signal to all Desert Air Force squadrons. The enemy has lost their outstanding fighter pilot in this theater. Captured RAF pilots who had faced him were told the news in prisoner of war camps. Many refused to believe it until shown the German communique. Squadron leader Neville Duke of 112 Squadron, who had tangled with Marseille several times, wrote in his diary, "A brilliant pilot and a clean fighter. The desert will be a quieter place." The statistical void he left was staggering. Between 1st October and 31st December 1942, the entire 27th Fighter Wing claimed only 96 victories in North Africa. In the 3 months before Marseille's loss, he alone had claimed 84. His squadron lost its edge overnight. The new pilots sent as replacements averaged 3 to 5 victories each before being lost. The Spitfire and Kitty Hawk pilots who had lived in caution of Yellow 14 suddenly found the skies less challenging. The Luftwaffe never filled the gap. Erich Hartmann would eventually surpass Marseille's total score with 352 victories, but overwon 404 sorties on the Eastern Front against often less experienced Soviet pilots. Marseille's 158 victories in 382 sorties, almost all against the best the RAF could field, remain one of the highest victory per sortie ratios in history. His 17 victories on 1st and September 1942, while subject to some post-war discussion regarding exact numbers, have never been equaled by any pilot in any air force. Post-war analysis by the U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey and RAF intelligence confirmed the majority of his claims through cross-referencing with British, South African, and Australian squadron records. The gun camera films, examined by Allied experts in 1945, showed the same pattern. Short, precise bursts from impossible angles, aircraft falling away in mid-air. His personal effects were returned to his mother in Berlin. Among them was his last letter home, written on 29th of September 1942. "The new Gustav is heavier, but I will master it. The English are getting better, but they still fly straight when they should turn. Do not worry. I am careful." He was not careful enough on the one day it mattered. The day Germany's most successful desert pilot vanished forever was not the day he claimed 17 victories. It was not the day he received the diamonds. It was the ordinary morning of 30th September 1942, when a 22-year-old climbed into a brand new aircraft, took off on a routine mission, and never came back. The desert swallowed him as completely as it had swallowed so many of his opponents. The Yellow 14 was gone, the squadron flew on without its star, and the war in North Africa, already turning against the Axis, lost the one man who might have delayed the inevitable for a few more months. Hans-Joachim Marseille never saw the collapse of the Afrika Korps, never saw Alamein, never saw Tunis. He remains forever 22, forever undefeated, forever the pilot who turned the North African sky into his personal domain. And on 30th September 1942, the domain ended not with a roar, but with the quiet sound of a parachute that never opened. If these minute-by-minute fact-based accounts of the moments everything changed are what you come here for, hit subscribe and ring the bell. A new documentary every single week. See you in the next one.